Hello, so this is a video sort of inspired by the last video I posted where I was talking about actually reading about my interests and sort of looking into my interests, and since I've decided I've sort of retired in a kind of way in my 26 years of life. I've learned so much about myself, and now I'm 26 and I sort of understand myself a lot better. Essentially, realizing things that what is it like in the identity of not being a human. So every day I seem to learn something new about myself. Um, Also, I was looking into news articles from the right wing because I want to red pill myself. And I've already done a lot of work on that, but I mean, there's so much information I've discovered because I've found so many different news outlets that talk about right wing politics. And there's like also like a sort of red pill kind of philosophy you can have. And my goal is also to be independent of other thinkers, so to be my own thinker. And also essentially what is the identity of myself? So I consider myself to be Lain Iwakura from Serial Experiments Lain in real life. So if you know what Serial Experiments Lain is, then you know what I'm talking about. I consider myself to be Lain Iwakura in real life. I had essentially gone on a journey, so I experienced a lot of freaking abuse in my life. And it really started and ended in 2024. All of it was sort of over and done with in 2024, most of the abuse, except I was assaulted when I was 26, which was in 2025. I was assaulted, I think. And I was raped 40 times from 2020 to 2024, and also lost my mind in 2023 and came back to reality in 2024. So as a result of that, I had to reprogram my mind over the course of the last couple years. And I've spent the last couple years not working, well, doing a lot of work for myself and also working a lot for my addictions, like cigarettes and coffee. And I'm very poor. I've really got it bad, man, because I'm really freaking poor. And also, just like for the last 2 years, I've been reprogramming my mind and also understanding what it means not to be human. And essentially, I developed my own philosophy called Norism, and it's a very complicated, highly complicated philosophy that I can think about for the rest of my life. And I also hope to write a book on Norism that I'm calling Neuristic Thoughts. And I've posted 3 of the first 3 key points of that book on my YouTube channel. And also saying, yes, I was raped 40 times and assaulted. And also just kind of people are rude to me a lot because I have face tattoos. And also the fact that I believe Lain Iwakura, who identifies, as someone who isn't human. I'm Lain Iwakura. What that means is essentially, what does it mean not to be human? Well, essentially, it's very complex, but Lain Iwakura is essentially a Mexican woman, um, and she lived a whole life as a Mexican and now exists on the float as she had died during her life. And the float is the moment, so what I'm experiencing right now. So all of this is within myself, essentially stating that though I'm not like a human Mexican, I'm like a non-human Mexican essentially. And I speak the language of ancient Mexican Nor, which is the language of non-humans. So there are 8 different forms of Nor, which is a non-human language, and I can speak 8 different forms of the language of Nor. And also another thing I'll state about this is that I am also a very good person. I'm very empathetic for people, but I sort of have a mindset where I'm all alone and I don't really associate with anyone else since I view people sort of as a threat. Given my life experience of being so abused, I view everybody as a threat and I don't have any friends. And also just hoping to learn more about the world and what interests me. I have an interest in video games and I have an interest in all sorts of things like computer science. I have an interest in anything that will make me smarter and make me understand the truth better. I'm also a Muslim, and Lain Iwakura is a Muslim, a Mexican woman who is a Muslim. And essentially, what I'm stating is that I have a non human body, so my body is actually female despite looking like a man who is human. It's actually a female body, and that is why I'm dressed like a female right now. You probably can't tell, but I am. And what I'm stating is, um, I'm sort of dressing like a female since it's causing too much confusion for me to be dressed like a man. It's making me way too paranoid and masculine when I dress like a man, so I've been dressing like a female to sort of alleviate that problem. And also just understanding that Lain Iwakura speaks 8 different forms of Norse, so sort of delineates from 8 different places on the earth. And all of these are Nora languages, sort of like human languages, and Lain Iwakura is an ancient kind of woman, more ancient than a ancient person born 100,000 years ago, since she is not a human, more ancient than that. More ancient than someone born 100,000 years ago. And all sorts of things like this that I can talk about and hopefully write about in my book on Norism that'll probably take me like a decade to actually complete since I'm so slow paced at producing these things and I struggle with my work ethic. I'm not very good at working because you have to keep in mind I am a victim of abuse. And being a victim of abuse, severe abuse, I had to spend the last 2 years reprogramming my mind, which was really hard and brutal. And now I've reprogrammed my mind so much and I'm still going, still working on bettering myself and understanding the world better. And also just stating that it's going to, you have to give it some time. I would say give it until I'm 40. That maybe I'll stop having panic attacks because I'm such a victim of abuse and stop having panic attacks by the age I'm 40 and stop worrying so much. And maybe one day I'll stop smoking cigarettes so I won't be addicted to nothing. But tobacco is actually a very part of Lain Iwakura, who is someone called Kichi, who was the woman who had lived a life during Lain Iwakura's life. And also, Lain Iwakura is very complex, for what she believes inside of herself also applies to the real world. So thus, she was able to think of things like Meredith Godrow being her wife, and things like this that are essential to the real world, but stating that Kichi had met Meredith Godrow as Moni during her life in a battlefield, and all sorts of things that I can think about and write about in my book. But there's also just me understanding the real world from my own perspective, like by red pilling myself or something. Or just also another thing that interests me is literature and philosophy. I invented my own philosophy called Norism, so of course I want to understand human philosophies. And the philosophies I seem to know the only thing about is Hegel or Kant's philosophy. I don't know a lot about any other philosophies, and I find them to be very peculiar sometimes. And sometimes I dislike the other philosophies I'm reading. And just sort of, if I spend decades reading stuff, I figure I must learn a whole lot. And also, I want to complete the Holy Quran. I'm still not done with it yet. And I'm stating for the record, I'm a victim of abuse, so my work ethic is really, really poor. I spend a lot of time rotting in my bed and just sort of worrying about things. And like, also, I have to do a lot of work so I can get these cigarettes. And it's like, I find myself very busy all the time. And if I quit smoking, I would basically just be doing nothing all day unless I decide to actually really read 24/7. And I feel like I've already done so much introspection, which was what I was trying to do, was be introspective in order to reprogram my mind. And saying by being introspective, I could have a deeper understanding of myself or the world. So this is all I have to really say in this video. But I will state, I also just like video games. I used to be an Osu player. I was also an Iwana player. And I sort of want to have a career in Iwana, but I don't have the time for it. And also, um, I just want to know more about other countries. Like, I want to know more about South Korea in particular. And also, I want to know more about France, less about the other parts of Europe, and more just about France. I want to know more about France because I want to go there someday. And I have all these dreams and aspirations, but what really happens is that I'll read a few things every day, I'll read something, and then just spend like the remainder of the day rotting in bed. Or like what I'll do is kill time by looking at social media, which is really unhealthy for me. And also just watching like Studio Ghibli movies. I don't really do a whole lot that's very productive. I feel like what I should be doing is studying. I want to be like, sort of an Islamic scholar knowing lots about Islam. And I was researching on ChatGPT what I'm supposed to read so that I can be an Islamic scholar, but I also just have to complete the Quran, I think, before I start doing any of that. And anyways, I discussed what my interests were in my last video, so thank you, goodbye.